What's wrong?
Go to hell.
American Graffiti is not just a teenage movie. It's a time machine that hurls audiences back to the summer of 1962, where every rock and roll beat, every neon glow, every screeching tire captures the rebellious spirit of American youth. Yet few people know the film had such a tiny budget that Lucas had to borrow cars from locals. Real police showed up after an unscripted car crash, and Universal repeatedly tried to kill the project, dismissing it as nobody wants to watch kids driving around all night.
Man, you come on back and I'll show you a few things.
Oh, race him. You can beat him.
You got just 2 seconds to get your ass over in your corner.
Don't worry. I won't rape you.
Can you imagine? A 12-year-old girl had to live with the producer just to have a legal guardian on set. Or Harrison Ford, then just an unknown carpenter, drinking heavily, sleeping in his car and still delivering a breakthrough role. So what secrets were really buried in the shadows of those endless night shoots? How did a scrappy, near-doomed film become a cultural phenomenon and the stepping stone to Star Wars? Let's uncover 20 bizarre facts about American Graffiti. 20. The crew was kicked out of town after one night of filming. At first, George Lucas and his production team chose San Rafael, California as the filming location since it resembled Modesto in 1962. But after only one night of shooting, the city council ordered them to stop. One crew member was arrested for growing marijuana, and the street closures at night created major inconveniences for local businesses, sparking complaints. After the incident, the production relocated to Petaluma, about 20 miles north of San Rafael. There, the crew was warmly welcomed by the city and community. Petaluma's historic streets and open spaces became the perfect backdrop for a small-town 1960s setting. Many iconic scenes, including the cruising sequences and the drag race, were filmed there. 19. Wolfman Jack recorded in a bathroom. Wolfman. Jack, one of the most legendary DJs of the 1960s, was already a symbol of teen rebellion through his radio presence. But when asked to appear in American Graffiti as himself, he initially refused to show up on screen. He insisted that his mystery, just a voice on the airwaves, was key to his allure. George Lucas agreed, but later changed his mind, staging a scene where Kurt meets Wolfman Jack face to face. Jack resisted, but eventually gave in, delivering a witty and self-mocking performance. The moment shattered the myth without killing the magic, letting audiences feel as though the legend himself had stepped into reality. Here's the twist to create that haunting reverb effect in his phone-in radio scene, Wolfman. Jack recorded in the bathroom of the crew's trailer. With no budget for a real studio, he relied on the natural echo. Lucas later called it a dirty but sexy trick, and the result sent chills down audiences' spines. Despite appearing only briefly, Wolfman Jack's presence became unforgettable. Do you love Jack's cameo? Tell me in the comments. 18. Filming only at night was brutally harsh. The entire film was shot over 28 consecutive nights from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. to capture the authentic energy of teenage cruising and drag races. To achieve naturalistic nighttime lighting, George Lucas brought in cinematographer Haskell Wexler as a visual consultant. Wexler worked unpaid flying from Los Angeles to Petaluma every night, shooting until dawn. He later recalled, "I was so exhausted, I told George, just point me in the right direction and I'll shoot." The grueling schedule took a serious toll on cast and crew. Many suffered from exhaustion and sleep deprivation. Ron Howard described it as, "It was like living in a vampire movie." What do you think of such a punishing work schedule? Share your thoughts. 17. George Lucas forced actors to live their roles off-camera. Lucas wanted American Graffiti to breathe and feel like real 1960s youth culture. To achieve that, he demanded the actors stay in character off-camera. Richard Dreyfuss had to behave as a nervous bookworm in public. Harrison Ford roamed around town as bad boy Bob Falfa cowboy hat on blasting rock from his black 55 Chevy. Locals thought they were actual troublemakers. By the time cameras rolled, the line between actor and character had all but disappeared. Even the cars became characters. John Milner's 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe was salvaged from a rusty junkyard, barely roadworthy and lacking seatbelts or AC. Car customizer Richard Ruth transformed it into an icon low-slung V8 roaring slick styling. It became a star in its own right, with collectors hunting it down for years. Replicas soon spread across the US, but the original was nearly left to rot until Lucas and his crew resurrected it. 16. The budget was so tight they had to rent vintage cars from locals for next to nothing. The production budget for American Graffiti was shockingly small, just $775,000, equivalent to about $4.5 million today. This forced George Lucas and the crew to come up with incredibly creative solutions to recreate the spirit of American youth in the early 1960s. With funds too limited to rent classic cars from professional agencies, Lucas devised a unique plan directly contacting local vintage car owners. Cars from 1955 to 1962 were invited to appear for a token fee of $20.25 each plus a free meal, resulting in a vibrant lineup of muscle monsters for the film. More than 300 cars from Ford Thunderbirds and Chevrolet Impalas to popular coupes and sedans converged on Petaluma's main strip, transforming the small town into a drag racing paradise. These cars weren't just props. They were driven in high-speed sequences, bringing audiences a visceral sense of authenticity and raw energy. Even better, many local racers volunteered as stunt drivers, tearing through scenes on set, and even racing off camera, generating the wild electric atmosphere the film demanded. 15. Ron Howard didn't want to join the film. Ron Howard, already famous for his role as Opie in The Andy Griffith Show, was hesitant when offered the part of Steve Bollender in American Graffiti. He worried that continuing to play wholesome young men would trap him in that image. However, director George Lucas persuaded Howard by pitching the film as a poetic story of coming of age, an artistic statement rather than a conventional entertainment piece. Howard agreed, but on the condition that his character Steve would be written with more depth and nuance. During filming, Howard took an active role in shaping his character. He even helped rewrite certain lines to ensure Steve wasn't just portrayed as a naive boy, but as a young man searching for identity and facing life-defining decisions. His performance won praise and contributed significantly to the film's impact. 14. Richard Dreyfuss nearly died on set. Richard Dreyfuss, who played Kurt Henderson, almost lost his life during what seemed like a simple scene. In it, Kurt attempts to jump into a moving car, but due to a miscalculation by the stunt driver, Dreyfuss slipped and nearly ended up under the wheels. Luckily, he escaped with only bruises on his hip and avoided serious injury. The shot was later reshot using a dummy to guarantee safety. Dreyfuss later admitted this was the first time he had ever faced such a dangerous accident on a film set. 13. Lucas used real graffiti lettering from Modesto walls for the movie poster. When designing the poster for American Graffiti, director George Lucas decided to use a hand-drawn typeface inspired by actual graffiti on the walls of his hometown Modesto. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice, but an artistic statement symbolizing authenticity and the rebellious youth spirit of the 1960s. However, Universal Pictures, the studio behind the film, hated the idea so much they proposed 50 alternative titles like Rock Around the Block or Another Quiet Night in Modesto. Lucas refused to budge, keeping both the original title and graffiti-style lettering, which became inseparable from the film's identity. Lucas's stubbornness proved visionary. The graffiti-style font became an iconic part of pop culture. Even the hit sitcom Happy Days borrowed this exact design style for its opening credits, showing the wide influence of American graffiti on American media and culture. 12. Paul Le Mat nearly got arrested for test driving a race car off set. Paul Le Mat, who played John Milner, learned drag racing techniques from real hot rodders in Modesto to capture his character's authenticity. But one night off set, Le Mat borrowed the production's '55 Chevy for a real drag race on the street. Police spotted him and almost arrested him. George Lucas had to step in, apologize, and pay a $200 fine to settle the incident. Still, Lucas kept Le Mat on, saying he was living like John Milner for real. In the end, Milner's character, paired with the iconic 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe, became a lasting symbol of 1960s car culture. His drag race against Bob Falfer remains one of the most unforgettable moments in the film. Do you love Paul's performance in the movie? Let me know in the comments. 11. Harrison Ford only agreed to join if he didn't have to cut his hair. When Harrison Ford was cast in American Graffiti, he was still struggling working as a carpenter to support his wife and 2 kids. Playing Bob Falfer was a major opportunity, but Ford had one strict condition: he would not cut his hair. He worried a haircut might hurt his chances at other acting roles. Instead of forcing him, George Lucas found a clever solution. Falfer would wear a Stetson hat for the entire movie. The hat not only covered Ford's long hair, but also became a defining element of the character, enhancing his rebellious, free-spirited street racer persona. The Stetson ended up being inseparable from Falfer's image and contributed to the character's unforgettable presence. 10. Music rights took up 10% of the budget. George Lucas poured money into the soundtrack to authentically capture the youth culture of early 60s America. He spent about $80,000, over 10% of the film's entire budget, on licensing 42 rock and roll classics from 1955 to 1962, including songs by Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly. Universal thought it was a waste and suggested cheaper sound-alike versions. But Lucas insisted the music was the soul of the film. The soundtrack album, 41 Original Hits from the Soundtrack of American Graffiti, was released in August 1973 and became a phenomenon. It hit number 10 on the Billboard 200, went triple platinum in the US, and sold over 5 million copies. Do you love the music in this film? Share your thoughts. 9. Suzanne Summers only appeared for 3 minutes but prepared for hours. Suzanne Summers had just one scene as the mysterious blonde in The White Thunderbird, and only one line, "I love you." But she poured herself into the role, rehearsing her smile and dreamy gaze for hours in front of a mirror to nail the romantic, almost magical aura Lucas wanted. Because of the low budget, the production couldn't provide her wardrobe or makeup. Summers bought her own white dress and even hired a personal makeup artist. Her dedication helped turn a 3-minute cameo into one of the most iconic moments of the film, representing Kurt Henderson's dream of love and self-discovery. Just 3 years later, Summers became a household name as Chrissy Snow on the hit sitcom Three's Company. 8. Cindy Williams and Ron Howard dated off-screen but broke up due to the brutal shoot. Ron Howard and Cindy Williams. 2 of the leads developed a romance during production. Their closeness on set, acting out teen love stories under Mel's drive-in neon lights, blossomed into something real. But the grueling night shoots and sheer exhaustion quickly wore them down. Their short-lived relationship ended with the sunrise. Howard later admitted, "We fell in love under the neon of Mel's, but when the sun came up, we broke up." Even though it was fleeting, their chemistry translated on screen, bringing genuine warmth and realism to the film's love story. Williams' Laurie became a symbol of youthful romance, while Howard embodied the energetic young man torn between love and independence. After American Graffiti, Cindy Williams went on to star in Laverne and Shirley with Penny Marshall, becoming one of TV's most iconic duos. The Graffiti experience not only sharpened her acting, but also opened the door to lasting stardom. 7. The producer became Mackenzie Phillips's legal guardian during filming. Mackenzie Phillips was just 12 when she was cast as Carol Morrison, the young girl who rides along with John Milner. California labor laws required a legal guardian for child actors. Since her parents weren't available, producer Gary Kurtz stepped in and became her legal guardian for the entire shoot. Phillips, the daughter of John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas, and Susan Adams had to live with the Kurtz family during production. She later recalled the experience as joyful feeling welcomed as part of their family. Too young for sensitive scenes, Phillips nevertheless showed surprising professionalism and maturity in her role. 6. Harrison Ford nearly wrecked the entire shooting schedule. At the time Harrison Ford joined American Graffiti, he was still an unknown actor making a living as a carpenter for Hollywood stars. He hadn't yet gained widespread recognition and was desperately searching for a way into the film industry. When George Lucas offered him the role of Bob Falfa, a reckless street racer with a white Chevy Ford, accepted the challenge even though the part wasn't a leading role. However, filming was far from smooth. Ford's free-spirited, rule-breaking lifestyle caused multiple problems on set. He was once thrown out of a hotel for inappropriate behaviour, forced to sleep in his car, and even memorised lines by carving them into his hand. The production schedule was nearly derailed because of him. Still, Lucas chose to keep Ford in the role, believing his face perfectly embodied the spirit of a real street racer, adding authenticity to Bob Falfa's character. Though small, the role became a doorway to Harrison Ford's legendary career. After American Graffiti, he landed bigger opportunities and rose to become one of the most famous movie stars in the world, especially with his iconic turn as Han Solo in the Star Wars saga. Did you find Ford's performance in American Graffiti unforgettable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 5. George Lucas wrote the script to win a bet with Francis Ford Coppola. After the crushing failure of his sci-fi film THX 1138, 1971, George Lucas received a bold challenge from his close friend and colleague Francis Ford Coppola. Stop making weird films, make something warm, human. This challenge was not only advice, but also a powerful push urging Lucas to step out of his comfort zone and try a completely new genre, the coming-of-age comedy. With support from Coppola, who had just triumphed with The Godfather, Lucas wrote the script for American Graffiti, drawing inspiration from his real cruising nights in Modesto, California, where he once nearly lost his life after crashing his Fiat Spider into some trees. The film became not only a vivid portrait of 1960s car culture, but also Lucas's personal journey of self-discovery. The character Kurt Henderson was inspired by Lucas's own student years at USC, while John Milner reflected his car-obsessed youth. Even the nickname Toad recalled Lucas's school memories. 4. Lucas's co-writers hated the ending. American Graffiti closes with a series of title cards revealing the fates of its main characters after that summer night of 1962, delivering a surprising and somewhat dark conclusion. John Milner was killed by a drunk driver in 1964. Terry Toad Fields went missing in the Vietnam War in 1965, while Steve Belander became an insurance agent, and Kurt Henderson lived in Canada as a writer. The two co-writers, Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz, who had worked alongside Lucas from the early stages of development, were openly dissatisfied with this decision. They argued that revealing only the fates of the male characters was unfair and too bleak compared to the film's otherwise vibrant spirit. Huyck and Katz tried to persuade Lucas to change it, But stubborn as the characters in his stories, Lucas held his ground. The ending sparked debate over its emotional weight and artistic message. Some critics, such as Pauline Kael, argued that omitting the fates of the female characters was disrespectful and reflected Hollywood's gender bias at the time. However, this ending also became a defining feature, turning American Graffiti from a simple, nostalgic tale of youth into a poignant reminder of the unstoppable march of time and destiny. What do you think of the ending of American Graffiti? Did you like it? Share your thoughts with me. 3. A real car crash on set led to a police investigation. A genuine accident occurred during filming, forcing the crew to handle the situation carefully. In the drag race scene between John Milner and Bob Falfer, an extra vehicle lost control and slammed into a fence in Petaluma. The crash drew local police who shut down the set to investigate seriously disrupting the shooting schedule. To avoid losing their filming permits, George Lucas negotiated with the local officers. He invited the entire police team for burgers at the Real Mel's Drive-In, a famous location in the movie. The police agreed to look the other way on the condition that no more off-the-clock drag races were held. This deal saved the production schedule and left behind a memorable story from the shoot. 2. The sequel was a complete failure. The sequel to the classic film American Graffiti was released in 1979 under the title More American Graffiti. Although Lucas didn't officially direct, he acted as a ghost director, overseeing every scene and technical detail. The film experimented with multiple aspect ratios to reflect different eras from street protests to the Vietnam War. But this fragmented style made the story confusing and stripped away the natural rhythm of the original. Lucas had hoped to tell a story about maturity and the social upheaval of the late 1960s, but its bleak, heavy tone and disjointed structure drained it of the freshness and vibrant energy that defined the original. Themes of unrest, war and protest made it feel too dark compared to the neon-lit summer nights of Modesto in 1962. The result, its box office earnings were only about 1/10 of the original, proving that Lucas's youthful memories were best left untouched in the first film. 1. Charles Martin Smith really crashed the scooter and nearly broke his leg. Fans may remember the scene where Charles Martin Smith, playing Terry Toad Fields, loses control of his Vespa and slams into a trash can at Mel's Drive-In. In reality, this accident wasn't scripted, but George Lucas decided to keep the shot because it perfectly fit Toad's clumsy character. After the crash, Smith had to practice driving stick shift for an entire week before continuing his scenes. The scooter he used was a 1959 Piaggio GS 160, chosen to match the 1960s setting. American Graffiti is more than a film about youth cars and music of the 60s. It's a treasure trove of fascinating behind-the-scenes stories, from Harrison Ford, drinking but still magnetic on screen, Richard Dreyfuss, nearly dying while leaping into a car, Suzanne Summers rehearsing for weeks for a 3-minute role to Wolfman, Jack recording in a bathroom for that eerie echo. Each detail brought the film to life and proved George Lucas's artistic vision and creative stubbornness. And you, when you watch American Graffiti, do you feel like you're transported into those dazzling summer nights of cars, music, and youthful rebellion? Which character or scene struck you the most? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to hit subscribe to discover more untold truths about other classic films.